I'm here with Jarrod Parks, who's a course developer at Udacity. Thank you so much for talking to us today, Jarrod.
Thanks for having me.
We're going to talk a little bit about student isolation, and especially student isolation as it arises in online classes. I wanted to talk to Jarrod about this because, Jarrod, you have unique experience in three different ways on this topic. One is as the student of online classes, one is as the designer of online classes, and one is also as a remote employee. Jarrod works for Udacity in Mountain View, but actually works out of his home in Alabama. And so that's kind of three interesting takes on the angle of isolation. So let's start with the experience as a student in the class. So what's your experience being a student in an online class where you might not be co-located with your fellow students?
So every time that I've taken an online class, I think one of the things I quickly find myself doing is wanting to share my experience with people. So whether I'm taking the class in isolation, which is usually the case, when I'm done with whatever the lesson is that day or the content that I've consumed, very quickly I want to talk with other people about it. So for me, I've always been able, luckily, to facilitate that with actual in-person conversations. But I think for others, it's useful to have a place to discuss topics.
So is that a perspective you try and incorporate when you're designing courses? Is there a way we can facilitate that?
Absolutely. I think any and every opportunity that we have and that students want to take advantage of that is discussion-based is always beneficial. I mean, that really, I think, helps capture what is difficult sometimes in the online education space is that, you don't have the same physical classroom that's traditionally always been there where people are having these types of conversations.
It's true that there's an absence of that physical interaction, that face-to-face interaction that we have right here. But in your experience, is there any instance where not only can the online environment be as good as it might be in person, but can it ever be better?
I think so. I think what the online environment has allowed me to do personally, and I think maybe some others as well, is that it allows me to put my head down and just go straight into a topic and not have to weed through, say, the conversation sometimes. So it's kind of a mix and match approach. And when I want to learn a certain topic, I can go and find it freely. And I think that's something that is better inherently about it.
Yeah, I think that one of my favorite experiences with isolation in an online classroom and the comparison to an on-campus class is that on campus, if I know there's a student question coming up or I know students are confused about something and it's Friday night and I just finished a lecture on Friday afternoon and I'm aware that students are confused, I have to wait until Monday to get back to them and talk to them about that. But what we have online is what I call 24/7 classroom. That it's always there. Students are always available to interact. Students are always checking their email. They can always visit forums. They always have a way they can interact with one another. And so I've mentioned this before in these interviews, but I can have an experience where I'll log into our class forum, and in 5 minutes I can interact with 10 different students, and then come back an hour later and do it again. And that's something we can't really do in person. In person we have this time boxing, and we have limited resources to meet in person because we have different classes and things like that. So there's a lot of things that we can do online that actually can break that isolation. But to your point, it's not something that just happens automatically. It's something,
right.
Yeah.
Mm. And it's interesting because it's kind of like a dichotic state. I think students have moments in their learning where they really want to be in conversation, and then they have moments in their learning where they really don't. And I think a lot of times as you're taking online courses, a lot of that responsibility is being placed on you as the learner. And I think for us as course designers, if we can take some of that responsibility away and facilitate the times when you want to learn with your head down to the grindstone or when you want to have class discussion.
Yeah, I think it's really nice too because I sometimes comment on what I call a rule of 20s, which is if anything is effective for 20% of the students in a class, we should use it because 20% is a decent enough portion, but we're never going to have anything reach 100%. I think that's really nice here because it means that those 20% or more who are going to get a lot of out-of-class discussions can do them. But those who really don't get a lot out of them don't have to sit in the classroom listening to them.
Right, yeah, and I think a lot of students experience this at an early age, for instance, in traditional classrooms where the conversation is something you already know. A lot of people enter grade school at very different levels, and so if you don't skip a grade or you don't get into the accelerated program, you get bored, and that's not good for students.
Yeah, it's a waste of time, and I think that students learn over time that if I'm not consistently being challenged, that school is boring. And that's definitely not what we want them to learn because eventually school won't be boring. Eventually, they'll get to the level that they're ready for, but we don't want them to have learned that they can skate through until then.
Right.
So to comment a little bit about your experience, if you don't mind, also as a remote employee, someone working at a distance. Is there similarity between being a remote student and a remote employee?
I think there's similarities in the fact that I feel like I need discussion as a remote employee, whether that's facilitated through online chat or if I can just talk to a friend. So, where I work from in Alabama, I've tried to do my best to create a space that is kind of the office, that's very separate from what is the home. And then I've also tried to force myself during the day to go out and have conversations with people, even if it's just over lunch. Because if I don't do that, I feel like I've been in a cave all day, and it drives motivation down. The same kind of motivation maybe it is for learning. I feel like it drives my motivation down for producing good material and doing good work.
I think nowadays we also have the benefit of a lot of really nice tools around these programs that we have. Our class forums. I know that the OMS CS program uses HipChat. We at UDASI use Slack. And there's some really nice tools that can kind of try and recreate that environment of being in an office or being in a classroom, that I always have people at my fingertips that I can talk to, or I can always post a message right now while I'm thinking about it that people will see when they have time, as opposed to, oh, I need to remember to bring that up on Monday when I get back to class. So.
It's one of those, it's like that strange, or it's strange, it's like the old saying, you don't know how much you miss something until it's gone. And when you're in the office every day around tons of people, and maybe you have too many meetings, you're like, gosh, I wish I didn't have to meet all the time. Whereas when I'm remote, I feel like I look forward to those meetings because that's my opportunity to actually get to talk to somebody during the day.
Yeah, absolutely. So do you have any final thoughts for our students who might be trying to solve the problem of student isolation when they're designing their tools?
I think it's just to be conscientious of the things we just talked about, and to recognize that, maybe when your motivation is down and you feel isolated, to go out and seek and speak with other students. You never know what you're going to learn, and I think there's a lot of reciprocity between what happens in student conversations. You're going to get something out of it, and somebody that you're speaking with is going to get something out of it.
Great. Makes a lot of sense to me. Great. Thank you so much for talking to us today.